joining us very shortly. You know, these two men share so many, many talents. Versatile, irreverent, but most of all, very, very funny. They have given us the great, great privilege of laughter. And there's just perhaps no greater gift that any entertainer can give us. And we are so pleased that Jack's legacy is here at USC. And that is in many ways because of his wife, Victoria Oakie, who worked her entire life to preserve his memory and to make sure that his legacy would always be tied to the future of students here at this school. And that tradition, since her death, has been carried on by the wonderful people who oversee the Oakie Foundation. And I want to introduce them to you: Barry Pascal, David Key, Gabe Dell, and of course, David Sonny. It's wonderful to have them with us. David, can we ask you to join us here?
Good afternoon, and thank you for being here. I know Mrs. Oakie would have been thrilled. My name is David Sonny, and the man to my left is Dr. Barry Pascal. The man to my man to my left is Dr. Barry. Sorry. My name is David Sonny. And the man to my left is Dr. Barry Pascal. My name is David Sonny, and the man to my left is Dr. Barry Pascal. We are two of the three trustees of the Jack Oakie and Victoria Horn Oakie Charitable Foundation. Charles A. Collier Jr., our third trustee, could not be with us today. It has been said that nothing lasts forever. Victoria Horn Oakie did not agree. Her wishes dictate that we, the trustees, strive to keep the legacy and the work of Jack Oakie alive. As you can see, Dean Elizabeth Daly and her staff in the USC School of Cinematic Arts have been instrumental in doing just that, keeping the Oakie name alive. And for your efforts, we thank you. Jack Oakie always said, give the money to the kids. Therefore, that's what we do. There are several USC School of Cinematic Arts scholarships available each year funded by the Oakie Foundation, and the application process is extremely simple. Information is available on the USC website, and we urge you to apply. It is a chance to get to know the Oakies and their work, as well as an opportunity to obtain a scholarship in the Oakie name. Therefore, it's a simple formula. You learn about the Oakies and their work in film, and we give the money to the kids. In addition, there is an Oakie endowment entirely separate from what we gift annually for the foundation. So it appears that Mrs. Oakie may be right. Jack Oakie's name could last forever. And just one more thing. I mentioned Dean Elizabeth Daly earlier, but neglected to tell the Dean about some good news. Beginning this year, there will be one more scholarship funded by the Oakie Foundation for $5,000. This scholarship This scholarship will be known as the Dean Elizabeth Daly Award for Excellence in the Cinematic Arts in honor of Victoria Horn Oakie.
recognized. I'm very honored because nothing matters more to me than having the funds available to keep all of these wonderful students in school. Thank you so very, very much. You know, I think one of the things about this school that is very special to all of us, and I know as you spend your time here in classes will, if it's not already, become special to you, is we're always looking at the future and where you're going to go and what you're going to do and what kind of wonderful new things you're going to create. But this is also a place about preserving the past and preserving the legacies of those people who have come before us. And this is really one of the best examples I know of making sure that those wonderful people who preceded us in this business that we all love are always, always remembered. So thank you so very, very much. We're very lucky this afternoon to be able to show you a montage, a very unique montage, of moments from Jack Oakie's work. And I think the work speaks for itself, and you're in for a delightful several minutes of clips. So please enjoy it, and please learn all you can about Jack Oakie. It's worth the effort.
Good afternoon. My name is Jack Epps. I'm the chair of the writing division. And it's my pleasure that the writing division can host the second annual Jack Oakie lecture. And I'd like to thank the Jack Oakie Foundation for the continuing support of the School of Cinematic Arts and also the generous support of students in the form of scholarships. We greatly appreciate that. And one of my favorite jobs is actually helping to hand out those scholarships. I want to also thank David Weitzner from the summer program, who was really instrumental in helping to arrange for Mel Brooks to come down and see us today. It's terrific of us working together throughout the school, different divisions. Quick message, the usual, please turn off the cell phones. If you haven't done so, turn off no laptops, please, no texting. It's really discourteous, so please make sure we turn those off. You know, genius is a word that's overused, and some people think we should just get rid of it as part of our vocabulary. But when you're talking about Mel Brooks, it's really hard not to use the word genius, because he is a genius of comedy. There's no question about it. He's a Renaissance comic. And the reason I say that is because he's a writer, he's a director, he's a producer, he's an actor, and an amazing songwriter. Mr. Brooks has influenced American comedy in incalculable ways on television and movies and on Broadway. It's unprecedented, really. His earliest work as a staff writer on the innovative sketch comedy show, Your Show of Shows and the Caesar Hour, and also becoming creator and writer of one of the funniest shows in the 60s, which was Get Smart, and his remarkable movies of the 70s, 80s, and 90s really shows the breadth of his skill and talent. Today we'll be looking at some clips. I put together some clips from some films, The Producers, Blazing Saddles, Young Frankenstein, Spaceballs, Robin Hood Men in Tights. And, you know, look for the Mel Brooks signature, the timing, the sense of the setup, the delivery, the building to the gag. I mean, it's fun to watch it happen. It's delicious. And we will have copies of these films in the cinema library, so come on by and use those films to study and also just to take a break. All right, it's good. As you can see, Mel Brooks is a master of the visual gag, the punchline, and the outrageous. His comedy knows no boundaries. He seems to take extra delight in shocking our conventional sensibilities. But one cannot appreciate the genius of Mel Brooks and his physical comedy without really having a working knowledge of Chaplin, Lloyd, Keaton, Keystone Cops, Max Sennett, the Marx Brothers, Ernest Lubitsch, Preston Sturges, Howard Hawks, Sid Caesar, to name a few. These are things that should all be in your vocabulary, and you should be able to know who all these people are and what they do. And if you love comedy and you can't go back to the 50s, I would send you to the Museum of Television Radio and tell you that you should spend an afternoon there and really dig into what they have in their archives of some of the greatest lunatic slapstick comedy of all time, which is 50s television. What makes Mel Brooks so remarkable is not that he's funny. There are lots of funny people around us, but it's his fearlessness and his willingness to rethink convention and put his own remarkable stamp on American comedy. It's that uniqueness. As for the clips we'll show, Mel Brooks flies without a net and makes no apologies whether he was taking on racism in the form of a black sheriff in a small western town, or mocking Hitler's megalomania, or questioning our own destiny in life, or living dangerously in a world of high anxiety. So enjoy the remarkable list about Mel Brooks, and let's roll the film.
Before I introduce our guest, I'd like to call a particular attention to his guests who have arrived with him. Seated with us today is the man responsible for Star Wars. You thought it was George Lucas. Guess what? You're wrong. It was Alan Ladd Jr. Laddie, you just raised your hand. Next to Laddie is Michael Gruskoff, Mel's longtime producer, a guy who pulled more rabbits out of more hats, and I am indebted to him, as we all should be, for a lot of the things that you saw today. Michael? Laddie felt very sorry for me and brought me to Los Angeles from New York. I had the great pleasure of befriending and working with one of the great production executives in the history of this business, Jay Cantor. The year was 1969. I was director of advertising for Joseph E. Levine and his company Embassy Pictures. At that time, I had the great pleasure of first working with Mel on a film called The Producers, for which he won an Oscar for Best Screenplay. 30 years later, the 2001 Broadway musical version of the same story, starring Nathan Lane and Matthew Broderick, which Mel produced, received 12 Emmys. 12 Tonys, excuse me. Now you can applaud. 12 Tonys. In television, Mel won an Emmy for writing in 1967, as well as acting Emmys for appearances on the comedy series Mad About You, which took place during the late 90s. Mel has also won Grammy Awards in 1999 for The 2,000-Year-Old Man in the year 2000, and received 2 more Grammys for the score of The Producers. His motion picture output has been nothing short of amazing, and I just call your attention to the clips that you just saw as a sample of what his work has been. And finally, I'm so pleased to tell you that this December, Mel will be recognized by President Barack Obama as a recipient for the 2009 Kennedy Center Award. Please welcome a global icon and a man whose humor is only exceeded by his humanity, Mel Brooks.
Is this my mic on? No, my mic isn't on.
All right, let me see.
Well, wait, there'll be somebody running down. Somebody will be telling me.
Yeah, there he is. Thank you. Check it out.
What's wrong? Why isn't it on?
A little button.
Knock it in. Is it on? No. It still isn't on.
We're live.
All right.
Okay,
Hello.
well, hello.
Oh, wait a minute.
Whoops,
It's on too much.
I think we're glowing together.
Let me know if there's feedback. You hear it? How can we
We can turn that down
how
a
can
bit.
we quell the feedback? I think I'm radioactive here.
Okay? All right, good.
Okay.
Oh, there we go. Mel, you have lifted our spirits with laughter, made us consider the scar of racism through humor, reduced a vile dictator to a buffoon, made us forget our troubles with and laugh with abandon. You are a 2,000-year-old man who doesn't look a day over 30. You have danced and sung your way into our hearts. You are a Renaissance filmmaker extraordinaire who has succeeded in extraordinary ways as a writer, director, producer, actor, songwriter. Your comic genius has left an indelible stamp on American comedy, American cinema for generations to come. You are a giant of American comedy. On behalf of the Jack Oakie Foundation, the School of Cinematic Arts, it's my honor and privilege to award you the Jack Oakie Lifetime Achievement Award.
Thank you. Thank you. You left out a few things.
Okay.
I won the Al Jolson singing contest at the Lois Pitkin Theater on Myrtle Avenue in Brooklyn. Where I sang. I sang Mammon. It's in questionable taste now, but it worked. When we were doing Blazing Saddles, I would sing it to Cleavon Little day and night. Drive him crazy. Mammy, how I love you, how I love you. He says, if my family comes around, make it mommy. I said, okay. So anyway, what do you want me to say?
I don't know.
I can tell you how I started.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you.
And why I ended.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, one thing I want to know is context, traveling back in time, young Mel Brooks, influences, what was, how did you become you?
Good question. Okay. Traveling back in time. I'm 9 years old. My Uncle Joe, who drives a big taxi cab, is coming down the street. You don't see him because he's about 4'11". You might see little hands on the steering wheel. And I used to say to him, Uncle Joe, why don't you sit on some phone books? And he said, I'm sitting on 23 of them, but nobody has a phone. Anyway, he said, get in the back of the cab, lie down on the floor so I don't have to throw the flag. There was a metal kind of flag looking thing, and you put it down. It told other people who wanted a cab and cops and everybody that you have a passenger. He said, I'm gonna leave it up, which means I'm empty. And I'm gonna pass a lot of people who want a cab, so stay in the back, stay on the floor. I said, where are we going? He said, we're going to the Alvin Theater. You're going to see the Incredible. It opened last night, and you're going to see the second matinee performance of Anything Goes. I said, well, what's that? He said, it's a musical comedy by Cole Porter. And you're going to see Ethel Merman and Billy Gaxton. And you're going to, I said, okay. So I flopped on the floor, heard the hum of the grating when we were going over the Williamsburg Bridge, so I know we were leaving Williamsburg, Brooklyn, heading for New York City, Manhattan. And then I could see the Chrysler Building, and I knew we were getting close. And then we came to a stop, and I crawled out. I still didn't want the cops to see that he had the flag up. And we went into the album theater to the last balcony, the last 2 seats, way the hell up. You could hardly see the stage. Ethel Merman began singing "You're the Top." She was too loud. No mics in those days. That's what a great voice she had. And I fell in love with musical theater there and then. It took me about 60 years to get back to it. But I mean, there were songs like "All Through the Night," this Cole Porter song. I mean, it was incredible. The lyrics, the music, it was truly magical. And it stenciled me, it impressed me. I mean, it said, you don't have to go, you don't have to be a cutter in the garment center, which is what every 9-year-old kid thought he was heading, you know, from Brooklyn. I thought I'd be, you know, a shipping clerk somewhere, and I did. I was a shipping clerk for a while for the Abilene Blouse and Dress Company. And I said to Mr. Pincus, "Mr. Pincus, how come you named your factory, your business, after a Texas town, Abilene? You're a Jew from Kiev, you know. What the hell is Abilene?" He said, "What Texas? 2 children, Abby and Lena, Abilene." You know? And he used to say things like, "Melvin, M-E-L-B-M-N-N, Melvin, give a little mop up it," the diminutive of mop. Give a little mop up it. I mean, it was like 2,000 square feet of factory. Anyway, I did a lot of jobs. And it all started with, first of all, the first impression of musical comedy that my Uncle Joe took me to. And there was a guy in our neighborhood in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. Williamsburg. 5th floor, 365 South 3rd Street. My brother Irving came home from Brooklyn College. He was studying to be a chemist. And I was about 10. And he said, why are you still up? It was about, 11:30 at night. It was pretty late. He said, "Mel, why you should be sleeping." And we lost our father when my father was only 34. I was only 2.5 years old when my father died. So Irving, who was 10 years older than me, there was Irving, Lenny, Bernie, and Melvin. And Irving was kind of my surrogate father, and he looked after the family. He worked 8 hours a day at Rosenthal and Slotnick, shipping clerk, making whatever it was, $8 or $10 a week. And every night at 6 o'clock, he'd go to Brooklyn College and spend 4 hours there studying chemistry, or and he would teach me things like dimethylamino azobenzene sulfonic acid, which is the formula, by the way, for camphor balls. In case anybody asks you. And it's in Young Frankenstein. I gave it to, when the monster transitions from a hulking beast into an intellectual, brilliant chemist, he says if we could only mix the fluid in his cortex with dimethylamino azobenzene sulfonic acid, he'd be right as rain. So I used Irving. Anyway, Irving said, "Why don't you go to sleep?" And I said, "I don't know the signers of the Declaration of Independence, and we got a test tomorrow, and they wouldn't let us have the textbook, so I could just copy it." So he said, "Okay, where do you play stickball?" I said, Marcy Avenue." He said, "Well, there's a signer, William Marcy." He said, "Well, where do you play punchball?" "Off the Stoops." I said, "On Rodney Street." He said, "Well, how about James Rodney?" He was a signer, Marcy, Rodney. And he said, "Well, what about, where do you go for, for knishes?" I said, Schultz's on Franklin. Franklin. Benjamin Franklin. There's a signer. Okay. And where do you roller skate when you get? I said, on Jefferson. Well, there's a signer. I said, wait a minute. I'm getting it. I'm getting it. I mean, all the streets I walk on and play on, and where my schools are, and where the RKO is, and where the Lowe's, and they're all signers. He said, use, keep, the Hooper, the street we live on, they're all signers. He said, that's why we're in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, because that's where the founding fathers founded the United States of America and the Constitution. So all I had to do is remember all the streets. I got 100. The first time I ever got 100 on a test. And that was Williamsburg. And it was really a great neighborhood. I felt sorry for anybody who wasn't Jewish because the whole neighborhood was Jewish. Every once in a while, you know, a Polish kid would go by and I would weep for him because he was a minority, you know? Not until I got in the army did I realize Jews were a minority. Anyway, that's a beginning. In Williamsburg, we had one famous celebrity, one actor. His name was Don Appel. A-P-P-E-L-L. Don Appel. Don Appel was an actor in a play based on a book by Richard Wright called Native Son, starring a great black actor by the name of Canada Lee, who was really one of the best actors ever to act on Broadway. And Don was in the play. He was a young socialist or something in this play. And he would take me and my friend Joe Gavanter and a couple of other Jewish kids, and we'd hang around backstage, and we'd actually see the play. We couldn't get seats to it. We were too little and, you know, couldn't afford it, but he would let us hang around. And then he would come home and we'd all sit on a milk box outside Janus's grocery store, and I'd ask him questions, and it was thrilling. And I said, I want to be, you know, I want to be part of that, part of entertainment, part of show business. And Don said, well, you're kind of short, and you're not really handsome. It's the funniest looking kid in the neighborhood. Anyway, he said, well, you know, I was about 14 when he sent me to the Butler Lodge in Hurleyville. That's in the Borscht Belt and the Catskills. And a friend of his was a social director there. And the guy's name was Joe Dolphin. And he put on plays. One of the plays he put on was a crazy old English play called Uncle Harry. And I was trying to get into, and he wouldn't let me get into any, you know, he said, you're too young and you're too dumb and forget it, you know. And so I would just, you know, clean up around the pool and bust the tables in the restaurant. And one day the guy got sick who was playing a district attorney in Uncle Harry. And he questions Harry. I used to see the play every night, so I knew the dialogue. I knew he said, there, Harry. Now tell it to me in your own words, in your own feelings. And that's generally what I had to say. And then Harry goes on for a half an hour. So, you know, there, Harry. Relax, tell it to me in your own words, your own feelings. There, Harry. Tell it to me in your own words, with your own feelings. There, Harry. I said, I got it. Okay. I said, what the hell? That's acting? That's bullshit. So they put a wig on me, and they put a beard, a little goatee, and they put a mustache, and they put some kind of Paul Muni as Emile Zola costume on me, crazy costume, and I walked, you know, out on stage, and I said to the chief of police, let me speak to Harry. Police leaves. I said, just let us be alone. Okay. There, Harry. relax, tell it to me. Tell me what happened. Tell it to me in your own words. Here, let me pour you a glass of water. Huh? Pour him a glass of water, hand it to him, he drops the glass, it breaks, water all over the place. The audience is just shocked, they don't know what to do, they don't know what to say. I walk downstage to the footlights, I take off my wig, my beard, I say, I'm 14, I don't know. I'm not really an actor. So I got big laughs, and then Joe Dolphin chased me through 3 different resorts, wanting to kill me. But I knew that I was destined for comedy, and I wasn't going to be a serious actor. And it was in the mountains that I played drums. I had a band called Mel Brooks and his 5 wife beaters. I mean, we were about 16, and then when I came back from the Army, I got a job at the Morningside Hotel, and then I actually worked at Grossinger's, which was like big time in the mountains near Liberty, Monticello. Anyway, and I was a drummer, and I was doing well, and the comic got sick, and I took over, and I would tell these bad jokes. You can't keep Jews in jail, they eat locked. Those were the jokes for me. I did fairly well, and I met a guy working at Avon Lodge who played tenor sax and was also funny, and his name was Sid Caesar. And Sid Caesar told me that he was going to be appearing in a movie called Tars and Spars, because he had made it and the Coast Guard was just being released. So we watched the movie, and he was great. He was really funny, truly funny. And Sid went on to play the Copacabana, and I knew him through Don Appel, who was the social director in the mountains and had used Sid Caesar both in the orchestra and as a comic. And then so I would hang around with Sid at the Copacabana, then I would meet Sid when he was in New York. There were movies and then stage shows, and then movie and then the stage show, and he was playing at the Roxy with Forever Amber, a movie starring Linda Darnell, and a wonderful old movie. And Sid was part of the stage show. He was the comic relief. So I'd go back and we'd hang out. And then one day he said, there's this guy, Max Liebman. I said, yeah, the Poconos, cameraman, social director. We knew who did what. And he said, he wants me to be part of a show he's putting together called the Admiral Broadway Review, kind of a Broadway review with songs and dances and opera and everything. And he wants me to be the comic relief. I said, geez, that's great. He said, well, come with me and maybe you can write a couple of jokes, you know. So I did. I wrote his first kind of monologue, interview monologue, Sid Caesar. Ladies and gentlemen, the guy who later became Carl Reiner, it wasn't Carl Reiner, it was a dancer who was playing actor, and he wasn't really nearly as good as Carl Reiner. Anyway, he was interviewing Sid, and he said, ladies and gentlemen, we have a man who just was shipped here from the Congo. He's a jungle boy. He is, he's saying, would you please put your club down? Yes, yes. Somebody took his club. He was wearing a loincloth and leopard skin. And I wrote this little sketch for Sid. What? Sir, you're in New York City. You're not in the jungle. What do you eat? Oh, pigeon. You eat pigeon. Can you talk? Yeah. What are you afraid of? What scares you in New York City? Buick. Buick scares you. What kind of Buick? Yellow. Yellow Buick scares you. What do you do? Wait till Buick close eyes. Then what? Punch and grill hard. Buick die. We got some laughs, and he made me one of the writers on the Admiral Broadway Review. And then Pat Weaver, who was a genius at NBC, put together this thing called the Show of Shows. and which was a spectacular Broadway review with ballet and dance trios and jazz and opera and incredible people like I don't know, like Margarita Piazza singing from La Boheme, and Yitzhak Perlman playing beautiful violin solos, and guest stars like Errol Flynn, and it was amazing. It was amazing. And I was one of the writers, and that's how I started. And I never really appeared. They asked me to do one thing that I could do that nobody else could do as well. Nobody. And that was, it was called Dial M for Money, was the name of the sketch. And Sid Caesar was supposed to back up in a darkened room and step on the tail of a cat. And the cat had to make a yowl. And so nobody could do it. I could do it. But I knew a million people were going to hear me. I was just my mouth got very dry. And then the guy, they do this and tell me, they do good. And I'm supposed to go, and I went, I couldn't make that sound. I couldn't. Finally, he kept backing up till there was no more set left. And finally I went, yay! Sid did this on stage. And anyway, so I worked there for many years with a great writing staff on the Show of Shows, which became Caesar's Hour and transmogrified into a wonderful weekly show with people like Larry Gelbart, brilliant writer, just passed away a couple weeks ago. Mel Tolkien was our head writer, he was great. Lucille Callan, one of the few early female comedy writers, she was very talented. She wrote the domestic sketches, she was fabulous. Tony Webster, Neil Simon, who wrote all those wonderful plays. Mike Stewart, who wrote Hello Dolly, Bye Bye Birdie. Nobody knows about these guys. Joe Stein, who wrote Fiddler on the Roof. Woody Allen, who's done a couple of things. And this is an incredible writing staff. Not everybody was in the same room at the same time, but it sharpened your wits, and the bar was set very high, so that your comedy had to be really good to make it on the air. And there were, now I know there's Saturday Night Live. They must have my son Max Brooks, you may know him, the zombie survival guide. That's my son. He sold close to 1 million copies of that. He just wrote a book called, my son Maximilian, Michael Brooks, wrote a book called World War Z that Mark Forster, who did A Quantum of Solace, is probably going to do as a motion picture. It's about zombies. They take over the world, and then each country fights its own battle to take back itself from the zombies. And there's a lot of, it's about zombies. It's not anything I understand, but my kid, he's pretty smart. So anyway, what was I saying?
Shows, Sid Caesar,
Yeah,
writing room jokes.
Yeah, the writing room, we did a lot of jokes.
Did you fight to get your jokes up? I mean, in terms of like, like survival of the fittest.
It was like,
Now my joke's better than this, and you just keep.
Yeah, we wanted to get the king's ear, Sid Caesar. Yeah. I got the joke.
So, amazing work. I love all those shows. Show is truly my favorite, and my favorite sketch out of it.
Did these kids ever heard of the show?
I don't think. I told them earlier. They need to go to the Museum of Television and Radio and watch those shows because they're absolutely brilliant and they're some of the funniest things ever produced, ever. But so, you go through 60s, Get Smart, which is a great show, an absolutely wonderful show. I was exposed to a 2,000-year-old man through my college professor. I absolutely love that. And then I'm curious to know, I mean, very successful, creating shows, television. How do you make the switch then to movies? Because at that time, television was like over here and movies were over there.
Oh, it's $7.50.
Okay.
You reach into your pocket, you take out $7.50, take your ticket, and pay your own movie. That's how I make it. You know, Sidney, we talk about, you know, Mike Ruskoff, you know. Well, I think Mike Ruskoff and Alan Ladd Jr. and Ray Cantor, at one point they were all agents. Some of the best agents in the world. You know, when Jay Cantor was introduced, he was introduced as a brilliant studio executive, which he is. But when he was an agent, he's very modest. When Jay was an agent, he handled, I'm not making this up, he was the agent for people like Marlon Brando, Marilyn Monroe, Grace Kelly. I mean, these are the people that Lew Wasserman entrusted Jay to be the agent for. So, I mean, to handle people like that, I mean, he's a short genius, you know, with a lot of patience to handle all these people. But movies are hard. So it began with Barry Levinson, and not the Barry Levinson who worked for me, and not the Barry Levinson who wrote Diner. Barry Levinson who worked for Mike, GAC, Barry Levinson, yeah, that was the agency. And he was handling a guy called Sidney Glazer who had done the Eleanor Roosevelt story, a documentary, who wanted to be a movie producer. So he took me to meet Sidney, this Barry Levinson. And Sidney, he was eating a tuna fish sandwich. And he had like a milkshake. He was doing this, doing that. And he brought the Brooklyn. And he said, well, tell me about this Springtime for Hitler. That was the name of the producers before Joe Levine made me change it. He said, the Jews, they own movie houses. They'll never put that on the marquee. Hitler don't work now. That for me, he works, you know. Anyway, I began to tell him the story, you know, about Bialystok and Bloom, and at one point I told him I began singing Springtime for Hitler, Springtime for Hitler, but he exploded. The tuna fish, the malt, everything. Got a little on me, I'll tell you the truth. And then finally he said, we're going to make this movie, we're going to get this movie made. We went all over, nobody wanted to make it. And then we met with Joseph E. Levine, who did The Graduate, who did A Bridge Too Far, who did A Man for All Seasons, and who really made his money with Hercules and Hercules Unchained. That's how he made his money. And he was a good guy. He said, sit down. Joe Levine said, we met with him. And Sid said, you'll tell him the story just like you told me. I said, I will. And Joseph E. Levine says, have a golden delicious apple at 25 cents a piece. Okay? He took it and actually rubbed it on his shirt. And he handed one, rubbed the other one on his shirt and the other. And so we ate these golden delicious apples, 25 cents a piece. In those days it was a lot of money. And we eating it, and then I explained the story. He says, that's good. It's a good story. Well, you got mine. I said, Zero Mostel. He knew Zero Mostel. And this guy, Gene Wilder, he said, who's Gene Wilder? I said, nobody knows him, but he's good. He's really good. I said, trust me, Gene Wilder is good. And he said, well, who will direct it? You're going to get a director. You've never directed anything. I said, no, but I should direct it because I've got all the pictures in my head. When I wrote it, I saw it. And what I've got to do now is recreate it. That's why a writer-director is a good thing. It's a good thing to have. So he thought about it and he said, what have you? I said, well, I staged all the stuff on the Caesar show, and I did a blah, 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 blah. He said, okay. And he gave me the job. And I directed. And for some reason, I got final cut. I don't know why. I asked for it. Final cut means that nobody can change a frame of your movie. So I did that. And that was my first movie, The Producers. It was not a success. I mean, it was not a success. It developed a cult.
Oh, absolutely.
A cult.
So, talking about craft a little bit, because we have, the room is young writers, young directors, young producers. And I want to talk craft a little bit with you in terms of, as a writer, I mean, where do you like to start? A movie idea, what is it, an arena that you like to start with, an idea, something, an image?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure how it starts. I think it starts with, actually with a character. Honestly, I think it starts with a character who wants something, who needs something. And it goes from there into this character, because of his needs and his wants, developing some kind of story, and then the story gets people with other characters. And then there are certain unconscious rules, like get the audience rooting for something, rooting for your character, your main guy or girl to get somewhere, to get what he wants. And so lay it out. And you gotta, sometimes you gotta be brave enough to forget about comedy completely. You start with a bang. I always start with a bang. I always try to write a funny scene to introduce my character, make sure he's funny. And then I take about, I don't know, as much as 8 or 9, sometimes 10 minutes to explain what the story is going to be about. And that's dangerous, because you can lose the audience during that 10 minutes. But if you don't set it up, then you won't get the rooting interest and you'll be in trouble. And then finally, you get, as they say, you get the character up a tree, you get him where he's in trouble, and then there's a miracle that saves him, and something good happens.
The George M. Cohan throw rocks out.
Right, well that's it.
Yeah. Exactly, get up the tree.
Right.
Now, you've done a lot of your writing with others, in writing rooms, building things, and you've done some screenplays with other people and some sole credits. Do you like a sounding board to build ideas out? Do you think that's really helpful?
I do. You don't necessarily need another writer.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes if you get a smart, make believe you can't type, or make believe you can't use a computer, and get somebody and dictate it to that other human being. I find old-fashioned, it's a good old-fashioned way to get early input, because they'll giggle or they'll smile or, or they'll be impassive. But first of all, you got to cast a pretty bright person to be, your secretary, your writer, amanuensis or whatever. But that's the way it works for me. And then I bounce it off this other person. And I never stop telling friends, not other comedy writers, because they'll steal it. Never tell other friends, loved ones, what you're doing. You keep talking, because as you talk about it, you refine it. You say, yeah, I think I could go there, I could go there. I could give him another compulsion or something, the character, But in the end, even though you're writing it basically by yourself, I've written a few all by myself, and I've written a few, I find, in collaboration, screenplays with other people. And they were always the most fun. But, so that's what you do. But if you like writing it alone, write it alone and begin to tell it to people. Tell it to people. People you love, people you trust, even a couple of strangers. You know, tell them your story. You know, you're on a bus and you say, hey, you want to hear a rough draft of a screenplay? And the guy will say, I'm sorry, I'm getting off you. That's a tip. That's a tip.
Well, I think it is. I think that whole verbal process of storytelling,
yeah.
I think, we discover it in the process of verbalizing it. And I think that might be something that's maybe, especially in comedy, because you feel the joke, the gag, it sort of comes out naturally, it's just, it gets a rhythm going, which I think may be sometimes hard to do at a typewriter where you just...
Yeah, if you just work at a computer by yourself, you might like it too much.
Yeah.
Really, you might say,
What's like Walt Disney's...
And then once, I never used a typewriter or a computer ever in my life, because it looked like somebody else wrote it, it looked final, I'd say fine. But if I wrote with a pen or with a pencil, then it looked rough, and it told me it was rough, and it told me it was thinkable and correctable, and it made it easier for me. So I write all my stories, all my ideas out on a legal pad with a #2 Everhart pencil. That's what I do, and I try to I have a good eraser on the side. I don't use the back of the Everhart because it just smears it. I have another eraser, a good eraser. Terry Marsh is a production designer. Terry Marsh. When I did with my late wife, my great wife, Anne Banks, what we did To Be or Not to Be. Terrence Marsh did he won the Academy Award for Oliver. I mean, that's a very talented guy. He did the sets. He did all the production. He built on when Laddie was running Fox, we did To Be or Not to Be. Terry built on stage 5. He built a lobby. He built the theater. He built the stage. He built the backstage. He built the alley. I mean, it was just amazing. The guy, he was really Terrence Marsh, a genius, production designer. He went into a store in Westwood. He's English, terribly English. Went to a store in Westwood and he said to the woman behind the counter, you needed a lot of different pencils and erasers. And he said to the woman behind the counter, I want a hard rubber. That's what he said. So she waited a while, looked at him, she said, excuse me? He said, I want a hard rubber. She said, I'll be right with you. And she called over the manager, and she was, and the guy said to Terry Marsh, you're in the wrong place, you want a drugstore. You want a pharmacy. He said, no, I want a hard rubber. And he said, you'll have to leave or I'll call it. And he said, you've never heard of a hard rubber? He said, and Terry took him over and he showed him the different erasers. He said, this is a soft rubber. This is a hard rubber. I want the hard rubber. He said, what? He said, in England, I'm English, that's what we call them. The guy said, oh, take it for nothing. Just get out. I gave it to him for nothing. So you want, when you're writing, you want a soft rubber. Hard rubber is for ink. It's for ink. Okay. What do you want to know?
I want to know. I've learned more about rubbers than I ever knew before, so I'm way ahead of the game.
When is somebody, if you just cut this little part out, and you're just, what is he talking about? Why did you ask him to come there and talk to me?
Exactly. The endless loop of that, this endless loop, without the punchline. Okay. You write with actors in mind, specific actor, because your movies feel very actor-specific. I mean, so are you thinking of that?
Yeah, well, you know, I had a kind of stock company, and I knew what they could do. I knew what, you know, I knew what Gene Wilder was capable of, and I could write crazy stuff, and I knew we could get there, you know?
Yeah.
And I knew Dom DeLuise, God bless him, you know, you could do anything comically, you know, physically as well as vocally. And there was Marty Feldman, you know, like all these wonderful, and of course the late, great Madeline Kahn, who was a genius. And
Cloris Leachman, who knew she
oh,
was
Cloris
funny?
is still with us. She must be 100. But she's still
I didn't even know she was funny, because I think it was the Last Picture Show, and suddenly she's this.
I know, she was a great actress in the last.
Brilliant timing.
I mean, when I did High Anxiety, she showed up on the set, and I said, Cloris, I think you've got just a hint of a mustache. And she said, yeah, I put it on. I think you know, Nurse Diesel should have a mustache. Okay. And I said, your boobs are like little pyramids. I mean, they're wild. She said, yeah, I think my boobs should be pyramids. I said, okay, so that was Cloris. She said, okay, what else?
Yeah, what do I got? Okay. Well, you know, I mean, as you're looking at aspiring screenwriters, advice for them? Am I moving here?
I'm ready to take some questions.
Okay.
There's
a first hand up.
Whatever happened to History of the World Part 2?
History of the World Part 1 was it was kind of a joke because it was only Part 1s and 2s, and I was hating all the Part 2s, and I made fun of it. So I never did Part 2. But I owe you one. I'll make it.
I've heard that you have very fun sets to work on. What is really important on a set for you when you're working on a film?
That's a good question. What's important on a set is to prioritize. What's important is that pay attention to what's the most important thing in the scene and focus on that. And don't let the fun fog up the, you know, always keep prioritize. Always keep what's the next thing you've got to get into that camera. You've got to get done. And if you don't, you're going to go over budget and you may never get it. So it's not having a good time on the set. It's keeping, you don't want to be a monster and drive people. You want to keep a nice, lively, friendly, hopefully humorous atmosphere, but you do want to prioritize, and you got to know in your head what your objectives are in the next hour, next 2 hours to get on film. That was a good question.
How do you direct yourself?
Yeah, I run over to the monitor. There's a thing called a monitor. And I do take, and I run over and I say, stinks, let's do it again. That's the only way. I thought, and sometimes, I thought it was great. And I would do what I like to take.
Can you talk about how you craft comedy and jokes?
It's impossible. You can't craft comedy or jokes. Andreas Voutsinas, a Greek actor who played Carmen Dia in The Producers in the first movie with Zero Mostel and Gene Wilder. He had this little Arabian slipper beard. Carmen Dia, Andreas Voutsinas, used to say to me, I'd say, what do you think of this? What do you think of this actor? What do you think of that performance? And Andreas would say, oh, you got it, or you ain't. I'd say, this is America. We don't start sentences with or. rules, and comedy is magic, it's insane. Or you got it or you ain't. Andreas was right, that's my answer.
Can you talk about, with the producers, you went through 2 different mediums and then took a musical theater show onto screen. Which of the 3 do you like the most?
I like live theater very, very much for me, because I kind of grew up in it, and it was like a dream come true. But I also grew up watching the James Whale, Frankenstein, and Dracula movies, and that was thrilling to me. And I also grew up watching cowboys. Maybe I saw maybe 200, 300 cowboy movies, swilling black coffee and scraping beans off a tin plate, and never farting. And I knew if they could eat that many beans, they could drink that black coffee, something would happen. I finally got it into Blazing Saddles. So that, you're right, that's a good question. I like saluting. So I'm saluting when I do Young Frankenstein as a musical, which will be here in about 8 months at the Plantation. And it's so damn good. I'm just saluting the dreams of a 9-year-old or a 10-year-old, because that's where my movies come from. They don't come from, a lot of good movies come from new phenomena that happen today, like computer viruses or sci-fi miracles. My movies really come from the dreams of a sub-teenager. Most of my movies have come out of that. Whether it be Broadway, which is very close to my heart, or a black and white. If they let me make black and white movies, I'd make more movies, just black and white. I never liked Technicolor movies. They always seem foolish, make believe, All right, Gone with the Wind, not bad. And The Wizard of Oz was beautiful in Technicolor. But when I was talking to Hitchcock, when I made High Anxiety, I would often call Hitchcock. I sent him a rough draft that he liked, and he said, "Have lunch," and I kept my friendship up with Alfred Hitchcock. It was wonderful. Funny guy. He gave me a joke. This is a joke. He said, a man is running. The police are chasing him. Or bad guys are chasing him. He's running. He's a ferry. There's a ferry boat. It's 4 feet away from the pier. 4 feet. He leaps with all his might, and he lands on the deck. And then the ferry's coming in. Hitch, that is so great. But I couldn't get the money. Laddie wouldn't give me the money for the ferry boat. I didn't do it in High Anxiety. Anyway, he was great. And, Alfred Hitchcock, okay? And who didn't want Alfred Hitchcock? Here's what it's Alfred Hitchcock. It all means in different languages. Listen up. I'm in Chasen's restaurant. Very famous. On Beverly, I think it was on Cannon. Laddie, where was it? Chasen's.
Beverly.
On Beverly.
No, Doheny later. Earlier. Earlier, wasn't it on Cannon? No? I remember it was years ago. Was it always on Beverly? Okay. Beverly Boulevard. I'm having dinner with Alfred Hitchcock. So, he has a shrimp cocktail, okay? 5 big fat shrimp in cocktails. Okay? He has a steak, New York cut, thick, baked potato with some kind of butter, cheese, something in it, and cream spinach on the side. And he eats it. It's pretty big. He eats it all. Then he has a parfait, ice cream, some nuts, some chocolate sauce, coffee. Albert was the guy. Albert coffee. Okay. Takes out a leather cigar case. I'm thrilled with all of this bullshit. Clicks it open, takes out a cigar, taps it, takes out another thing from his vest, a little guillotine, clips off the edge, doesn't put it in his mouth, puts it back in the case, clicks it shut, puts it back, puts the guillotine back. Albert, he says, do it again. Do it again? What does he mean? 2 minutes later, 5 shrimp come out. with cocktail sauce. A steak, potato, a frap, a parfait, coffee. I can't believe it. Click. I said, if I hear do it again, I'm gonna run. I'm gonna run because he's gonna explode. Well, he takes out the cigar. It's already clipped. He lights it, and he says, "Now, talk to me." That's a true story. That's how it is. Amazing guy. Now, I show him High Anxiety, the first cut, dedicated to the master of suspense, Alfred Hitchcock. He watches the movie. I see him shaking, so he's trying to suppress a few giggles. He doesn't want to give himself away. He gets up at the end of the movie, doesn't say a word. He goes by me. I'm on the aisle. He gets up, he goes by me, he leaves. Not a word. I say, "Oi, I'm in trouble. I'm in a lot of trouble." He doesn't like it. I made fun of the shower scene. I made fun of North by Northwest. I made fun of every movie that Hitchcock did. Oh. The next day, at noon, sharp, guy comes in to my office at Fox, corner office, Dick Powell's old office. Great office, thank you, laddie. With a wooden case. Puts it on my desk. It's a case, I look at it, it's stamped, you know, like the old French wine cases. It's stamped Chateau Aubryon, 1961. I pry it open with a I don't know what the hell I got. I let it open. I pull out Magnum, 6 Magnums of Chateau Aubryon, red, Bordeaux, priceless. I'm a wine collector. It's like the best wine you could ever drink in your life. There's a note at the top. I open the note. "Dear Mel, have no anxiety about High Anxiety. It's a wonderful film. Love, Hitch." Tears, tears, tears. I would go to Alan Ladd Jr., who was sitting over there, and I'd say, "I want to do this movie." And Mike Ruskoff, we went to Columbia with Young Frankenstein, the movie. We went to Columbia. Columbia was to make a deal, Columbia Pictures. I remember years ago, Sony said, I talked to somebody at Sony, and they said, "It'll always be Columbia. It's Columbia. Columbia Pictures. You'll never see Sony anywhere. Today it's only Sony. You can't find Columbia Pictures." Never mind, that's my own private peccadillo. You saw a lot of that when I made Silent Movie, the first one to catch those bastards, I called it Engulf and Devour. They were taking over the movie business. And they have. Transamerica took over United Artists. Everybody, don't get me into that. Mike said, we were at Columbia, and Mike said to me, Mike said, tell him you want it in black and white. You know, we're making a deal at Columbia. And Columbia finally, $1,750,000. Not enough to make a movie, really. I had good ideas. I knew it wasn't enough, just of creating the monster. So Mike keeps saying, Mike Grusko, he's sitting over there. Mike also produced, that guy produced my favorite year. And for years, devotees of film, Silent Running, you may know that, and Fire, what was the fire? Quest for Fire. Mike. He says, tell him about black and white. So I finally said to Columbia, to make the deal, he said, I said I'm going to make it in black and white. It was silence. They said, you're kidding. Peru just got color. Bolivia just got color. I think Spain just got color. Are you crazy? Black and white? You're going to make this in black and white. We're not going to make it in black and white. So finally, they called me back and they say, all right, we want to make the movie. We'll make it on black and white. We'll make it in black and white on color stock. You could do that. You could blanch. There's people in this audience that know how you do that. But you can actually do it. You can make a black and white movie on basically on color stock and bleach out all the color, you know. I said no, because I know that when it comes to Peru, you'll colorize it again. You can bring the color back on that color stock. So they said, well, we're not going to make it in black and white except on color stock. That night, Gruskov, sitting next to Laddie, gets a script to Alan Ladd Jr. And Alan Ladd Jr., after midnight, calls Mike and says, we'll make it. He was just taking over 20th Century Fox. He said, we'll make it. And Mike said, Mel's going to need a little more money. He said, whatever he needs. I want this movie. I want to make this movie. So we stuck to our guns and we said no to Columbia. And Columbia Pictures said fine. I was in the middle of editing Blazing Saddles. If Columbia Pictures knew what Blazing Saddles would do, which was a tremendous explosion, big hit, they never would have let it go, but it was before that. And these are, no offense, movie executives. So they're just thinking in terms of, you know, of profit and loss. Laddie wanted it, we gave it to Laddie, and the next day I just moved my office over to Fox, and the rest is history. Because Young Frankenstein is probably the best film I have ever directed. I wasn't in it, I didn't have to worry about myself. I could just concentrate on Gerald Hirschfeld's beautiful cinematography, Dale Hennessy's incredible sets. Gruskov picked the best people as the producer. And we made, John Howard was the editor. And we made, it was, for me, I gotta tell you, it was a cinematic triumph, because I could do everything I wanted. I had a great performance. Gerald Hirschfeld, cinematographer, said, I want to put more rubber boards, rubberized boards down, because the camera gets a little shaky on the stone floors in the castle. And I said, no. I want you to do it like James Whale. I want you to trundle in, and I want the camera to be a little shaky. He said, but it's my photography. I said, bullshit, it's my film. You're only the director of photography. I'm the director of everything. So, and you see, if you see the movie, when it moves in for a close-up of Cloris Leachman, it really shakes, you know. And it looks like James Whale directed it, you know.
What, those early Universal monster pictures?
Yeah,
Really does.
yeah, they were incredible. Black and white. But Jerry did such a great job. Gerald Hirschfeld, he backed Halos, he backlit it. I mean, it's brilliantly, you know, it's brilliant cinema. I got to tell you that. I mean, it's not nice to say that because it's me, but it is absolutely brilliant cinema.
I think it is. I think you're absolutely true, because what it is, it shows that craftsmanship of making movies that from all the depth in terms of the imagery. The sets are fabulous in terms of the deep photography, the height in that movie is really terrific. Really sense of space, the monster's room, and all of that, the sense of a castle.
And then the performance, I mean, Madeline Kahn, she's at the railroad station with Gene Wilder, and she says, "It's taffeta, darling." He can't even touch her. And he doesn't know what the word taffeta means, so he says, "Taffeta, taffeta." He thinks it means some love thing. Taffeta, taffeta. And then, so she won't let him touch her. She says, "The nails, I'm going to acquire the nails." He wants to kiss her. "No, no, no, they're not dry, they're not dry." And finally he says goodbye. You know, he can't even touch her. He's saying goodbye, he's off to Transylvania. So it was brilliant. He blows a kiss, he puts a kiss in his palm, and he throws it at Madeline, and she ducks. She wouldn't even take the kiss that. That's the genius of Madeline Kahn. I love her. Please, please, cheers. Questions?
Questions coming up. From this
2 or 3 more, and then it's over.
How do you deal with criticism? How do you deal with criticism in your film?
I go into the bathroom, I flush the toilet, and I curse like you've never heard it in your life, so that nobody knows how much it affected me. Then I come out, and somebody reads a bad review, and I say, "Well, it's their opinion."
It seems like parody movies these days have been done to the point of being overdone. And
Wait a minute, you got a guy behind you.
I'm sorry. You go.
Okay.
Thanks so much. So much of comedy has to do with timing and performance, as you've been talking about. Do you worry about that when writing, getting it on the page?
No. You know, timing comes from the talents you're working with. You can't teach it. You know, or you got it or you ain't. But that's time. I mean, writing is never on the page. I mean, timing is never written on the page. It's hard to talk. The guy in front.
Sorry.
No, it's your turn.
Well, I was just curious.
Turn around, make sure it's in.
I was just curious what you think the keys to making a good parody movie are, and you know, what you think about kind of the current state of that and what we can do to go forward.
Good question. First of all, you have to love the genre that you're having fun with. I love the monster movies. They meant a lot to me as a child. I lived at 365 South 3rd Street, as you well know. And I said to my mother on a hot July night, "Close the window." You know, the fire escape was there. She said, "Close the window. It's hot. Melvin, it's hot." I said, "Close the window, Mom. Close it and lock it." She said, "Why?" I said, "Because I think Frankenstein's going to come up to the fire escape and bite me and eat me and kill me." And my mother was pretty rational. She said, "Wait a minute, let's talk about this. First of all, he's got to get on a boat. He lives in Transylvania. Maybe he doesn't have enough money to pay for the passport. Let's say, all right, he goes on a boat. The boat comes to New York. He's got to take a cab. Got to get to Brooklyn. Now, he comes to 365 where we live, South 3rd Street. The Frankenstein comes to, right? Now, there's 5 floors. We're on the 5th floor. All those windows are open. Why should he go all the way up to the 5th floor? It's extra. He'll probably kill somebody on the 1st floor. I said, okay, open the window. So that's, what was the question?
Okay, we've got a last question, one more, okay.
The films are so powerful as social satire too. Can you talk about when that enters in your writing process if you start with character?
Well, you know, that's a good question. I never sacrificed, let's say, a political or social agenda for a character or story. It's, what I have to say has to be funny. Now, underneath it, like in Blazing Saddles, there is an engine. There is an engine that drives Blazing Saddles. And that's hatred of the black man. It's racial prejudice. And that drives the movie. Because unconsciously what I'm saying is, this man should be saluted and loved for what he's doing for these townspeople in Rockridge. But instead, they're calling him names and they want to kill him, they want to shoot him. Now that's without that engine, I don't really have a powerful emotional story. But I disguise it and put first cowboy antics that allow me to have a lot of fun right from the beginning. Right from the beginning. When we first played Blazing Saddles at Warner Brothers, this is a true story, I was sitting there with the producer, Michael Hertzberg, who was my first director on The Producers in New York. And nobody really laughed or enjoyed it. That picture could have been gone forever. John Calley liked it a little bit and he laughed. And Dick Shepard, he was good, he laughed. But Ted, there were a lot of people in that room. Who was Greenbaum, Greenleaf? Who was the distributor? Greenfield. Leo Greenfield. Leo Greenfield got up after Blazing Saddles, first cut I showed to the studios, to Warner Brothers. Leo Greenfield got up and said, well, you know, I never say we've spent, I don't know, $2 or $3 million, whatever, on this movie. I've never said eat a picture, bury it. He says, this is embarrassing. This picture is embarrassing. He never got the social event. He never got the social event, the engine underneath. And he thought it was terrible. And he thought it was in bad taste, especially the farting scene. Can't argue with it. And he just wanted Warner Brothers to eat the picture, to forget it, bury it. You know, we made a mistake. And movie studios have done that. And Hertzberg said, I've rented room 12, screening room 12, which is up one story, for tonight. And I've invited all the secretaries and anybody who worked, at Warner Brothers to come take a look. And let's see if we get any laughs. We didn't get any laughs here today. So we went there and I was really almost in tears. I was so unhappy. And the first line, when the cowboy says, give us a good old nigger work song, and they sing, I get no kick from champagne. There was such a scream, such laughter. And you could feel the love for Cleavon Little, and you could feel the love for the movie. I mean, they just loved, and they screamed with laughter at everything with Mongo and the fire, everything. Everything, like the most amazing laughs you've ever heard in your life. And then the secretaries kind of brought it back to their offices at Fox, at the Warner Brothers. And then I got a call from Callie and people, and they said, well, we decided to open it in New York, Chicago, and LA. And we're going to open it for a week in each city and see what happens. Well, the rest is history. Because except for people like Laddie, studio executives don't know shit from Shinola. They simply don't know what's good, you know. And you're going to be fighting that all your lives. That's not going to be easy. But there always is a secret agenda you must have that is emotional. Because it's better to have a picture with some purpose than just laughter. It's better to have some purpose in it. And in the producers, there's a wonderful love story between Bialystok and Bloom in the end. And almost every crazy comedy I've done, there's always some secret agenda. And that's something I think you should all put in the back of your head. Because drop the other shoe is called emotion. You can't just write antic comedy. It should be about something. Now there was one person way in the back. Hello? Yes, way in the back, who we said it was the last question, but no, it was another person. who's in the back that didn't get an answer? Okay, black shirt.
That's good, actually, because what you said relates to my question.
Say it again, say it loud.
I said what you just said relates to my question, so it's good. One of my favorite quotes about comedy, I believe, comes from you, where you said that it's like a rubber ball, and you have to bounce it against serious situations, like hard walls. Otherwise, it won't come back. What I wanted to know is if you believe there's such a thing as too serious of a situation.
Never too serious a situation. Never. I could make, if someone would give me the money, I could make an hilarious comedy out of Iraq, out of the war. Hilarious. But its heart and soul would be very serious. Very serious. So, but you can always find the, the comic insanity if you dig, but you got to have an agenda. Like you said, the hard wall to bounce it against. Okay, ladies and germs. It's almost been fun. But I'm going to take my award and get on with it. If you're diligent and you're very careful, you'll see this on eBay. I'm kidding, I cherish. I love Jack Oakie. I'm the only one who knows who he was and what he did. He worked for 20th Century Fox, and he worked in great movies with Betty Grable and John Payne. And he was always Boley, Bolenkowitz in college movies. And watch Jack Oakie movies because they are terrific. And you'll find them in early Fox movies. I love you all.